Once you've seen a little bit of life, you realize it doesn't matter. What matters most is the mindset you take into it, what you extract from the situation, the relationships you develop while you're there. I mean, even if you're served up the worst, you know what sandwich, what you make of that. And just like being persistent in saying there's something on the other side of this, as horrible as it might taste as you wash it down, there's something on the other side that is making you better, stronger, more enlightened, more maybe more loving or lovable. Maybe you were just a tough SOB and you needed to get broken down or something like that. Not me, of course. But yeah, I've learned that over and again, and I've just come to trust that. So I think what you see now is many years of, having to suck it up, maybe having to cry in private and like puke your guts out over something that you thought had your grasp on, and then it was snatched right at the last moment. So you learn as you make some mistakes, but you never really fail until the game's totally over.
Welcome to the Chad Carden podcast, where people and culture make all the difference. Our guests are real leaders that are making real impact by creating even better cultures and even better results. We're going to talk about things that most people aren't talking about. We're going to talk about things that leaders are thinking but might be scared to say. We're going to get into issues that can give you practical and tactical ways to set you up for a higher probability of success. Let's get after it. All right, my friend, we are on. Hey, I'm excited about today's guest for a couple reasons. One is him and I have a ton of history, and I have a mad respect for this gentleman. But two, what I want you to take away from this, and hopefully it shows up, is just his approach. And I mean, I'm always fascinated by the way he approaches business and life. He has a very serious side of him, but before we just hit the record button, he also has a much lighter side, which I don't know if we can share on camera. But and I never know what's going to show up. Like, this guy's always kept me guessing. So, Joe, I appreciate your time, and thanks for being on my podcast.
That's some intro, Chad. Definitely setting the bar a bit high. I hope I do deliver, and we get more out of this. Besides that, I was able to upgrade Chrome on my MacBook before we started this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. We're talking, if nothing else, at least now you're not completely up to date. Let's just start here. I mean, you have a very interesting, diverse kind of professional background. Give us the highlights. Kind of go back in history and walk us through up to kind of what's happening with you today.
Yeah, I'm a guy named Joe from Long Island who worked on Wall Street, and there was none of them, so it was a very diverse, unique background. Um, the well, it all started on Tuesday evening. Chad, I'm very blessed. I've had a lot of experiences in life that the first, third or so, they say you have, every person lives two lives, and the second one begins when you really when you recognize you only have
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And that only happened a bunch of years ago when we were, I think, on the third of five daughters. And at that point in time, I did a little bit of a reflection back. And I recognize I really have been blessed with such a life that's been so choose your own adventure. For those who actually remember when we had these things, these pages stuck together on one side called books, and you could flip around from chapter to chapter and choose the adventure you wanted. And in the end, every story was different, but you still went through the chapters just in different sequence, and it kind of changed the story. So kudos to the writers and the movie makers who've done things like that, where they allow you to hop around. But between thinking I was going to the Naval Academy, ending up at an engineering school, getting an internship on the New York Stock Exchange when they traded on, again, paper and in fractions, 16ths, ending up as a performance coach, and doing public speaking on stage really is not a linear path. It's like the most convoluted route. And along the way, I will attribute not only the host of this program have shaped me in many ways. You were an early mentor as I embarked on the second career after retiring from Wall Street. And so I look back on all the people that have touched me in a way, have modeled great things in a way, and have also done some really bad things in their life, which allowed me to not make those mistakes or only dabble in those mistakes maybe. So um, the best thing I could say, Chad, is that I've been blessed with a lot of different experiences, diverse in nature, and have brought me to a place where today I feel really excited about the people that I not only have brought into this world, my children, the people that I hang with, the clients that I do work with, the organizations and boards that I sit on and I help influence. And it just, that is the purpose. So now I am definitely recognizing that I only do have one life, and I'm on the other side of that coin. So thanks for
Yeah.
prompting me.
I think there's a book. I think it's Gladwell. I might be mistaken on the author, called Tipping Points. I think it's Gladwell. And it truly is fascinating how the choose your own adventure books really parallel life, right? You make certain choices that open up different adventures that create a completely different ending than had you went down and went to page 68 versus 61. Let's go back to thinking you were going to go to the Naval Academy. You and I really haven't talked about that a lot. Tell us about why that didn't pursue out.
So I was born in a place already alluded to, Long Island, which is very high pollen, allergens, and whatnot. And unfortunately, as you could hear today, I got a little bit of seasonal interaction in the nasal passages. Still, I had some allergies that led to asthma. And as far as the Department of Defense was concerned, even though the grades were there, the athleticism was there, we were preparing for it, they said, there's no way we let you through our academy, our prize academy in Annapolis, and then we can't commission you. We can't get, 5 years of service out of you. So they didn't want to take a chance on me. That was
Okay.
great news because then I ended up going somewhere else. But I am to this day probably the biggest fanboy of Annapolis. I could give tours better than most of the midshipmen that are on the campus when we go down there. My wife, really doesn't want to take another tour, but I force her to since the children are with us sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was an interesting end to what I thought was my direction in my teen years. And then that just set me on the course in upstate New York at Troy. And I went to Rensselaer, got an engineering background, and then sped right down to Wall Street and started my professional days.
Yeah. Knowing you as I know you today, setbacks are just seen as another thing that you overcome. When you did not get into the Naval Academy, was that crushing for you at that time, or or did you have that kind of that mentality? Have you always had that mentality of like, well, what's the next thing?
Yeah, candidly, I was late for lacrosse practice because I was pleading my case with a colonel out in Colorado at the Air Force Academy. That's where the Dobmer was, and I'm pleading my case with him, and I just couldn't get I couldn't get any daylight.
Yeah.
There was the one person at that point in my life that I wasn't able to convince to do what I needed them to do, and I started to cry, and I was like, holy cow. This is it. All this time, there is no other way that this is going to happen. And so, well, I got to go to college. So, waitlisted here, no scholarship money there, parents, civil servants, like we got to scramble. We got to put something together. And as luck would have it, my sister had gone to Russell Sage down the hill from RPI, had a friend who was an alumni from RPI, reached out and said, "This guy's got great grades. He's an athlete. Admissions, what can you do? I know you've already accepted your class for the year. Maybe you have one more welcome packet for a young guy from Long Island." And they gave me a shot, and I made some of my best friends. I still have about 20 fraternity and non-fraternity brothers and sisters that I've met up there who I still stay in touch with. So in the end, Chad, once you've seen a little bit of life, you realize it doesn't matter. What matters most is the mindset you take into it, what you extract from the situation, the relationships you develop while you're there. I mean, even if you're served up the worst, what sandwich, what you make of that. And just like being persistent in saying there's something on the other side of this, as horrible as it might taste as you wash it down, there's something on the other side that is making you better, stronger, more enlightened, more maybe more loving or lovable. Maybe you were just a tough SOB and you needed to get broken down or something like that. Not me, of course, other people. But yeah, whatever it is. So I've learned that over and again, and I've just come to trust that. So I think what you see now is many years of having to suck it up, maybe having to cry in private and like puke your guts out over something that you thought had your grasp on, and then it was snatched right at the last moment. So you learn as you make some mistakes, but you never really fail until the game's totally over.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in life that walk through life play the victim, right? Nothing works for them. Nothing ever
That's a
happens for
very popular
them.
role these days. There's
Yeah,
actually we're oversubscribed on victims.
we are. And I think we could. I don't want to chase this rabbit too much, but I think it's everything that you talked about. It's all self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I believe that you create your world and you walk into it, and where you are is where you should be, and your outcomes are just a result of kind of everything you've done up to that point. And you and I share very similar aspects in life of abundance versus scarcity and all that different type of stuff. My question to you though is, did you always have that muscle and you've just built it, or did that muscle show up somewhere? Like where was that foundation?
Yeah, so the muscle is there because it's wrapped around the skeleton, right? It's part of us and what we're born with. But developing that muscle is the act that we have to take responsibility for. So I do believe everybody has it in them, and it's just a matter of either flicking a switch, which is very quick, and that can come with people like us in front of the room or in a coaching session. It could come from reading a book, seeing a movie, having a traumatic life event, or it could be something that you really have to come to terms with and recognize in the mirror over time. But in the end, we are all given tools. We are all given brain capacity that we will never touch, that will barely even scratch, the mid single digits, let alone, break into the 10% or greater. So all of that is in us, all of that confidence, all of that opportunity, all of that wit, all of the brains and the love and the compassion and the potential. It's just a question of how deep we want to go into recognizing this horrible situation or this plateau that we're on. It doesn't have to always be negative versus positive. There could be grades in between. So maybe it's just a plateau. We got ourselves there. And everything that we overcame to get ourselves there makes us a champion in our own way, in our own journey, in our own story. And therefore, if we want something else, anything, truly anything is possible, we just need to commit as an individual or as a very tight team to pursue it, to go after it, to block out anything that's going to distract us. And sometimes those are very difficult things. They might be family members, they might be ailments, they might be debt or political blockades, whatever it is. So I don't think it's necessarily all nurture. There's definitely some that's just nature, and you've got to do a little bit of that balance.
What do you? I, I subscribe to all of that. I completely do. I had Paul Long on the podcast.
Never heard of them.
Yeah,
Is that the dude who used to wear the cat suits at
that's
the
the cat
Royals
suit.
game?
Yeah, just Google cat suit. You're gonna find him and his buddies.
Couldn't have been the better time to be introduced to someone in the entire life. If you said like when do you want to meet someone, I'd like to meet that individual right about the time he's bold enough to wear a catsuit singlet to Major League Baseball games, and that's plural, games plural, for
Yeah,
multiple seasons. But I don't want to meet him too late because then he'll be too big and important and popular, and then he
yeah.
wouldn't want a lowly like me from New York coming to visit. So it was like the perfect time to meet a guy in a catsuit singlet. Enough about Paul.
No, I love Paul. We've connected again, and he's doing great things.
I owe him. I think I owe him. We do an annual bet. Since we became buddies, thanks to you and Steven. Um, and we do an annual bet over who's in the Super Bowl, mostly because his team is a bunch of cheaters, and they just are always in the Super Bowl. And but in the end, he's actually had to buy me some dinners as well. So he had to buy me some ribs, and I think I've had to send him some crab legs a few times though.
I would love to get a shipment of crab legs.
There you go.
You mentioned something. He mentioned something that I want to circle back to. In the beginning, you mentioned, and we'll get to kind of your current state. You're in a great space right now with, your business and your family and the people you surround yourself with, um, and he's, when I asked him that question, he said some of this a very similar path. And my question to him was my question to you is, there's a lot of people that think that's bullshit, right? There's a lot of people that just think that that's just bullshit. So do you and maybe it's not an either or answer. Do you try to help those people find a different path, or you just I'm not gonna associate with people that really subtract from my life, don't necessarily add or multiply.
I don't know if it was you or John Dewey or maybe even Paul Long, but whoever first threw out there, help me understand, right? Help me understand why you think that's horseshit or whatever, why
Yeah.
you don't believe that, or help me understand why you think I'm full of it or I'm whatever. And tell me more about that. Okay, explain that to me. And you get deep enough and you can really understand the other side's perspective. First off, that could solve just about all the problems that we have going on socially, politically, and whatnot. If anybody actually asked any of those questions at any given time and really took an interest in finding out the view from the other side, not to digress. So for me, when I hear something like that, My gut is not to take offense to it. First off, I'm very comfortable and confident, and I walk in the door, and I have five, you know, beautiful young women, healthy, thank God, who come running to welcome me home. So the worst day is always the best day, no matter what. As soon as I see those girls, right? So there's no one who's going to shake me by throwing out, some shade at me about something that they don't see with. But what I truly want to do is understand if I'm going to engage any further, I need to understand where you're coming from. And if you really are so far down the rabbit hole, then I got to look at my watch and be like, I don't have time for this, and I
Sure.
need to go.
Yeah.
Um, or it's not me who can save you here, but I'll usually throw a nugget out. And fortunately, a blend of what I have upstairs, the unlocking I've done there, being from New York and quick-witted, getting my teeth kicked in on the street, whatever. I can usually give something of a quick, either witty but intelligent retort that will, kind of brush them back and then allow me to exit, at least diplomatically. Um, but if someone shows signs of life, if they really show signs of interest and they really want to know why I'm so confident in even asking and they dump everything out, I'll start to unpack it with them and I'll work through it and I'll try to disprove their logic first. Then we go into, well, what might be another way of looking at this, or if you didn't have to think that way, or if that challenge no longer existed, what would be the path? What would it look like for you? What would, you know, being comfortable and confident look like? What would it be to be, two layers up in promotion? And all of a sudden they build the path. They've now bought into it. They realize they don't have to go back to where they were anymore. And now whether they choose to either do business with me or hang out with me ever again or tell me to, go fly a kite, whatever, at least I feel like I've done what I know to be the best I can do in that situation. And,
Yeah.
hopefully I haven't, wasted or invested too much time, and I could feel good at least knowing that I tried and I did my best, and I'll take that, to the pearly gates.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I've experienced it firsthand. You are a master of getting to the heart of the issue and really helping dissect it in a way that just about understanding, being authentic about caring and really wanting to learn and asking the right questions. I'm gonna. There's so much we
Total
could
work in
unpack.
progress. We're all works in
Well,
progress.
you've come a long way. Let me put it that way.
Thank you. I
Sometimes after
attribute.
we leave, but
Yeah.
sometimes after we do leave conversations, I'm like, with your quick wit, because you mentioned, I mean, you have the knack and ability to throw shit out there, and I'm like, was that a compliment or was he putting me down? And playing that guessing game sometimes. Life on Wall Street. So there could be an entire podcast on life on Wall Street. Tell me, give us kind of the cliff notes and what are some of the key takeaways and some of the learnings that have helped you kind of, as you propel throughout your career.
So yesterday I met with a friend, a longtime friend, who I had never actually physically met with. So we had become friends because I knew her brother. We had gotten connected again through LinkedIn, totally separate from anybody else, just because the algo put us in each other's streams. And then ultimately, we recognized how much overlap we had to the point where not only do we have clients in common and connections in common, but I did a semester abroad in college with her husband. Different schools, but like we had that
Wow.
kind of overlap. It was like, wow, it's so crazy. And we finally met after years of having gone to school with her brother and all the other, connected, potential points to connect. We finally got together. So, two things about Wall Street, back to your question, that are summed up in there are: one, pick up the phone and get an order, right? And so simply reaching out over and over and over again got more connected with Stacy. Ultimately figured out she was heading into New York yesterday for something, a recording session that she was doing, and gave us an opportunity to connect. And I can point to no less 150, and I'm pretty comfortable saying that number, 150 relationships where by me just simply picking up the phone over and over and over and over and over again allowed me to get the order. And the order is now, as you can see, a metaphor for a real order ticket that you get paid on, a relationship, an opportunity, a podcast invitation, whatever, the part you need for the appliance that's on the blink, whatever it is. So pick up the phone and get the order. The other side of it is you can learn more from what people do wrong with their lives than you can by watching people who do everything right. So people who do everything right, the expectation's so high. You're looking at them like they're the role model, they're the best. Like I will never be able to hit a home run from both sides of the plate in the World Series. So I can, Otani, I can watch him all the time and want to do that. But one, I'm about a foot and a half shorter than the guy and, 100 pounds less. But he's got like 30 years of being one of the best athletes in the making ever. So I'll never be able to do that perfect. And that's tough to watch and digest. I'll be able to applaud it or whatnot. But what I can do is very quickly say, well, wagering on sports and fixing games, I'm not going to do. And
Right.
right away I could say I'm not going to do that. So I'm not trying to link him directly to that, but we all know that there might be a little bit of a, fire beneath the smoke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so in any event, I think so those two I would say are the biggest, and then the final one is leave it between the bells. And so 9:30 the bell rings, markets rip roaring, goes till 4 o'clock, bell rings, that's it, pencils down. And I would say that every day for like 10 years. Pencils down, 4 o'clock in 1 second, right? There's so much that goes on when you're trying to earn a living, when you're trying to be a parent, when you're a coach, when you're an executive, when you're in training, when you're physically working out, when you're mentally taxed, right? Whatever it is, when you're getting out of debt, when you're getting into debt, there's so much that's going on. You have to be able to compartmentalize it. And on Wall Street, you have to be able to compartmentalize it. Otherwise, you bring that stuff home, you become a terror at home, you come back the next day, you're unhappy, you become a terror at work, very short-lived. So if you can't compartmentalize things, then you can totally spin out of control. And seeing that, or you could actually, if you are successful, taking the positive view of that, being able to compartmentalize things allows you to suffer without being in despair, allows you to overcome obstacles, allows you to win, but not be, completely, read your own press and be drawn to the prize, keep you based. So I think leaving it between the bells, making sure that you keep your eyes open for the role models that might be doing the wrong things or making bad decisions, and then also picking up the phone to get the order, whatever way you want to translate that in your life. Those are the lessons I want to go forward. I mean, I could tell you stories about Wolf of Wall Street type parties, but I don't necessarily think that your audience wants to hear about those. All I
Actually,
will
that might
say
be,
is,
yeah, that's from my other podcast, the one that's on the
yeah,
dark web. We'll get to that
that's right.
later.
Yeah, you got to prove, you got to put your birth date in before you access that website. But I will say, I watched that movie with Leo and Jonah and a bunch of them, Rob Reiner, a jerk, and dead on accurate, absolutely accurate to things that transpired during the so-called heyday or golden age of open auction market trading.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
It's fascinating, and again, I could talk for hours on it. You mentioned, obviously you have five wonderful daughters. You got a beautiful wife at home. You got a good family, and I want to take this so many different directions. But I'm kind of all over the place here. But let me go back to, you said you had your third daughter. You made a
Chad,
decision. You made it.
Chad. We've known each other a long time. You don't have to be nervous. You could just calm down. You don't have to be so nervous about it. It's all right. We still have another half hour together. It's fine.
I appreciate that coaching. Uh, you mentioned you realized you only had one life,
Yeah.
and since then you've as a true entrepreneur, I mean, you have your hand in a lot of different things. You've got real estate deals, you've got some financial stuff going on, you've got your coaching and your consulting business going
Yeah.
on.
Ulcers,
How
poor sleep patterns, bum shoulder. Yeah, all of that comes with being that.
and you're trying to get your handicap down, on your golf game, which you're probably better than Otani on the golf course, I would say.
That son of a gun better not show up at the tee box because he probably could, and he'll switch. He'll have like two sets of clubs, and every other hole he'll play just to make me feel even worse. Yeah, no, that really, if I could get my handicap to a single digit, that would be the true marker of success.
That's the
That would be
ultimate
it.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're always evolving, as you mentioned, but you're in a pretty good spot right now. How did that give us that evolution of kind of leaving Wall Street, going off on your own? What were some of the things that kind of helped you again get to where you're at today?
Yeah. Well, I don't expect that my wife would ever actually listen to this episode, or maybe she would because she likes you. But if she did, she will appreciate what I'm going to say next, because it'll be the only time I admit to it. But what happened was I got married, and I got married to a great woman, and I got married to a great woman who's of the faith, and a great woman of the faith who really wanted to raise a family. And so those characteristics and the sequence of events that unfolded allowed me to recognize more and more what my real purpose was, what my potential is, and I don't even think I fully reached it, but it allowed me to just fuel up on going after so much more than I even thought I was possible of doing. And it allowed me to never really look back. It allowed me to never look back as I got on a plane to go to San Antonio, Texas, or El Paso, sorry, El Paso, Texas, and have great tamales at the AT&T call center, courtesy of you, my man. It allowed me to never look back until I got home, and I could really go out there on the floor working with those reps, handling those disgruntled customers calling in and helping them along. It allowed me to pour myself into an entirely new career in my 30s. It allowed me to recognize that all of it was just part of my story. None of it was really great success or failure. None of it. It was all just part of my story. And that evening out for a style like mine, which is decidedly more expressive, as you can imagine, I know that comes as a shock, it allowed me to even out. It allowed me to find a keel that was much more steady. And so over the years, I've just been able to become more and more comfortable in that. I've been able to explore more depth of not just myself, but in relationships. I've been able to double down on things that I know to be true and not be persuaded otherwise or distracted otherwise. And so that to me is really a very, very key ingredient, and it also is the building blocks of something that everyone could have. It doesn't have to necessarily even be a spouse. It could be a business partner. It could be just a great friend, or it could be, a pet rock, an imaginary person, whatever you got.
Yeah, that foundation allows you to leap off and create a lot of possibilities. So you're you're in a good spot. How do you stay? And I know it's your faith, I know it's your family, but how you're also always working on yourself. I mean, the total package, right? I mean, we've talked about this before. You're professional, your personal, your health. What are some things that you do if you ever get off centered to kind of recenter the needle and make sure that Joe's showing up at his best?
Physically, I sit back like I just did. Metaphorically, I sit back. I take a step back. And whether it's for a very, very brief period in the middle of a flurry, busy season, I'm sure similar for you, spring and fall, super busy. Everything loads up. Professionally, personally, with the kids, season changes. It's just an intense period, right? So even if it's an hour on the busiest of days and the busiest of weeks, blocking that time and just ring fencing everything out and keeping myself in and saying, hold on a sec. What's the task at hand? What are we really doing right now? What's really going on? Now that's not super strategic because you may only be looking like, very next task, very whatever, but it allows me to just kind of find a calmness on a more concerted basis and not because all the bells are ringing around. Quarterly, I'll make sure to do a whole series of things, not all at the same time necessarily, but one of them is like a complete fast, like a salt water fast. And so just a cleanse of everything in the physical body, right? I'll do a retreat, go to a farm, a wooded area, or whatever. I'm on the board of Holy Family Farm. Go up there and just meditate and think and be clear of everything and no devices and no whatnot for a day or two. Um, I'll do a goal calibration. So we'll look at everything that we set out to achieve. We'll try to figure out what we've left behind or what we're falling behind on, what we really need to turn up, the volume on and recalibrate. So very strategically work on myself, my family, the business, and my relationships. And I don't leave anything out. I think I'm very real. One of my superpowers, I think, is that I'm very real. I'm just enough street, I'm just enough real, and I'm just enough, learned and educated to go down a path that says I'm not doing a good job in this relationship. And I take with real effort, how can I clear up any messiness that might be out there or whatever, and how can I reach back out to this person and in one text message or in one email or in one phone call make right a gap in time or how I wasn't there for them or whatever. And I really take that personally, and I try to make those missions, whether it's to resurrect a relationship or pick back up an instrument that I haven't been practicing on, or go deep on a proposal for a client that I think can really bring me to the next level and really get to know what's going on in their world so I can propose the best path forward for them. Whatever it is, I feel like I'm super intense, and doing so comes from regularly unplugging, getting away from everything, and just clearing the head of the tasks, the day to day. There was a very, very, very Three varies. Wise man who once said to me, to truly read the label, you got to get outside the bottle. Well, he said it less eloquently. I mean, I got to be honest with you. His was like a little bit crass, but to truly read and understand the label, you got to get outside of the bottle. And I think of that all the time. Now, you can't do that every day because you actually have to work in the business. You have to work in the family. You have to be in the chaos of like morning prep before school and pick up and drop off and all the events and soccer and ballet and this and that. But every now and then you could say, hey, what are we doing here? Or is this the most efficient? Who do we need to enlist? Who do we need to avoid? What mindsets or constructs do we need to like rebuild or rewire? And what other stuff needs to be, added to the equation? So those would be some of
That's
the things I do.
that's powerful. That really is powerful. Let me double click on that one more sub bullet point. Somebody listening to this saying, just like you look at Shohei, like there's no way I'll be able to hit two home runs home runs from each side of the plate.
I'll take one home run.
Yeah, somebody going that sounds awesome. I would love to get away. I would love to meditate. I would love to do this. I would love to do that. And I want to get there. I'm not saying I can't. I'm not fighting that battle. But where would I start? Like what would be the first domino? What
Yeah,
would you say?
totally. I would say, as I said to my brother-in-law first, when it first dawned on me, I'd say, here's what you do. You want to get fit, you want to get back in shape, do 15 push-ups, 15 crunches or sit-ups, and 15 air squats every morning for a week. And he goes, no, 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 I want to get back in shape. I want to, I felt like Mr. Miyagi, and I like walked away. I was like, just do it. And of course, what happens? He doesn't go a week and all he did was, 45 movements. By like the third day, he was up to like 20 and he was proud to tell me about it. And I go, great, now do 50 a day. And you could break them up however you want. You could do 10 sets of five sets of 10. I don't care. But just do 50 a day of those three. Okay, great. And then a couple of weeks now, he's got to really get to that. And then he's doing them different variations. And then all of a sudden, we add in a couple of other exercises, right? And then you maybe buy a piece of equipment or join a gym. And all of a sudden, you build this whole thing. So it's very important if you're going to do something that is truly meaningful, before you cut, measure. Before you measure, think. What do I really want to achieve here? What is the outcome that would be really, really optimal? Okay, well, let me back up just a couple of steps. Thank you, RPI. Let me reverse engineer. What do I need to do today? So tomorrow I'll be better positioned to move closer, and then the next day I can be better positioned to move closer. And you put only a little bit of weight on it because if somebody got up there and said, you've got to go, I want to go hit a home run in the World Series, that is so much pressure. Trying to figure out how to even get on a team, let alone into the World Series, pick the right one, get there, and then actually hit a 98-mile-an-hour ball, a core wrapped with leather as it's screaming toward you from 60 feet away. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you probably should do is watch some videos. The first thing you should do is maybe take some practice cuts and see if you have physical, capability. Then you maybe learn a little bit about how fast that ball is and start to orient yourself with it. And I'm breaking this out in real time, but
Yeah.
you have to reverse engineer to what makes the most sense today to make some kind of meaningful progress to get toward meaningful milestones. That way you can ultimately achieve what you want to achieve. So if it's about getting away, start with 5 minutes. Put in your reminder, your $1,200 access to everything and also a reminding instrument every day, repeats daily, 5 minutes. What time do you get up? 6 o'clock. Okay, at 6:10 every day, a bell's going to go off that says, in all caps, spaced out with emojis, 45, or daily 150 or whatever, 10 push-up, 15 push-up sit-ups, and just put that in there. And then after a couple days, you'll add a little more time. 5 minutes will become 10 minutes. 10 minutes will become 15. 15 won't be 15 sitting in the dark. 15 will be sitting downstairs, maybe with a cup of coffee now. Maybe all of a sudden you have a notepad and you're writing notes. Maybe all of a sudden you start to read a book for 15 minutes, but you don't want to read a book every day. So some days you read a book in that 15 minutes. Others days you take notes, you start to journal. Then it goes to 30 minutes because you're enjoying it so much. And now you're listening to a podcast and then you're praying, and now all of a sudden you've filled 210 minutes, 7 days times 30 minutes a week. You've filled, right, all of that time with activity that is not shuttling the kids around to sports and whatever, fretting over what client emails are coming in or what deliverables you have to go out or the promotion you didn't get or whatever, but instead just ruminating on a few things that matter. Maybe putting different thoughts and concepts and reminders in your head about who you are, about the greatness that you've lived and experienced and can deliver onto the world. So that's how I would do that. I would reverse engineer into it and then just use the digital reminder, you know, because we have them on us at all times. And when that bell rings, when you see that thing pop up, make sure you do it. And then just chip away. And then eventually you just start creating more and more space until you've got this has been awesome. An hour a day or an hour or 2 hours on the weekend. Well, now I'm going to do it for a full weekend, a full day on a Saturday. And you find a group in town who's also doing it, or maybe you mention it to some dude from Jeff City, and he says, "Why don't you come out and we could do it together, right?" And you just keep going and going and going, and then you do it 3 or 4 times a year with different people. And
That's such great advice. That really is reverse engineering it, finding out what the first domino is, and let it build. Let it build because it will build, like you mentioned.
see, you say it so much better than me.
Yeah.
So, like, you brought me here just so you could have me yap on and on and on. And then you're like, no, what he really said was,
I do these to make myself look better. That's why
it's a good strategy. It seems to be
yeah,
working.
absolutely. It's good marketing. So
What filter do you have on your camera, by the way? Because you look exactly the same age as when I met you, like a dozen years ago. And
my
I
buddies call me
feel
Benjamin Button. They say I'm reverse
that might be the case.
aging the process.
That's actually exactly what I'm
Yeah.
witnessing. They nailed it. My gosh.
Um, it was funny. We were taking. I got to be careful. We were showing some pictures of our classmates and how some people age more than others, or guess the age.
Tough.
I was showing to my buddies a picture of one of my classmates. I go, guess how old this person is, and they were guessing, and they were, I mean, just absolutely flabbergasted. She's my age. Anyway, hopefully he doesn't listen to the podcast, but
You just narrowed it down to
yeah,
12
yeah,
kids from that class, so
yeah.
you're going to be getting some text messages later. Your Facebook page is going to get all blown up with like, "Who are you
Oh
talking
Lord,
about?"
maybe they'll catch us in post. Um, so tell me what's happening now, because every time we talk, there's something going. I know you have some anchor points with your real estate. You have punch partners everywhere. So just give us the cliff notes of what Joe's focused on and working on right now.
Yeah, so you gave me a great idea back in the day, right? And Stephen always put me in great positions. My brother-in-law always put me in great positions to not get hurt, not get embarrassed, right? Safe places, great clients, good programming, stuff that was fun and meaningful. And along the way, I realized I can leverage, my what I wanted to do, right? You start to peel away the things you don't want to do and discard those and get to the core of what you really want to do, right? With the profession. And so what I was able to identify is this is a great way to periodically work with smaller organizations. So obviously, if you work with a publicly traded company and you're in one little department or business line, you're probably not going to be able to make a meaningful investment. You could always invest in their stock, but you're not going to be making a meaningful investment, and they're certainly probably not going to be giving you big stock incentive awards or equity awards. However, if you work with startups or smaller businesses and you're working at the C-suite with the ownership, they may very well say, "Hey, can you come in a little on the budget? Like we can't the scope because we can't really afford the full bore." You can make a business decision to say, "I'll cut that back a bit. Give me a little bit of equity on the upside. Give me a little piece of the action because we're going to achieve things that are going to make this business better." And you're going to know that I'm aligned with you all along the way because it's not just the fee. The fee keeps us honest. We don't cancel on each other because you're paying something and I'm getting paid, so I better be there. But we're really after the growth, right? We're really after the improvement, the positive improvement. So along the way, I've been able to identify a couple of great opportunities. I've had a couple of not so great, but very few actually. Um, some of those, as you mentioned, student housing, self-storage, multifamilies, and whatnot, and that's been great. And my partner Cosmo and that stuff has been awesome. Another great takeaway, and so happy I ended up at RPI because I wouldn't have him as a dear friend, as an investor, as a godfather to my daughter. So those investments are certainly things that I'm passionate about, but I'm not out there in the muckety muck. I'm not, they're just investments, right? The people that are part of that organization, though, are what I'm really investing in. So of late, you ask the question of what's going on now. So we've got Palio performance coaching, where we dig in deep on individual, group coaching, front of room, and even keynote. And we really talk about what are the race, the rules, the competition, and the prize that you're in professionally, and how can we get you to that next level, or at least to clarity about the one that you're in or the one you want to be in, so you can be victorious, right? And we have some fun ways of doing that. A lot of it's centered on gratitude and self-awareness, and making sure you set meaningful goals and you achieve them, accountability. Then we have all of the investment businesses through real estate. And what we've been working on over the last few years, I think you know about this. Very good friend of mine, Matt Rosetta, a business partner of mine now, is very passionate about soccer, in particular European soccer. And along the way, he brings along his friend Joe and says, "Why don't you get involved in this Italian football club? It's at the bottom of the barrel, bottom of the league. And we think we can make meaningful change and bring it up to prominence again." So we were able to do that as an ownership group. Matt is amazing in that regard. Well, can't sit still like you. And he goes after a couple of more teams. He gets hooked on this idea. He's a girl dad, but only three of them. I got five. Um, he gets hooked on women's sports. Now, women's sports happens to be pretty darn popular these days. A
Absolutely.
lot of a lot of different commentary on how, why, and what to do about it, but the fact remains, Matt and I, for sure, and many of our investors have an absolute vested interest in the future of women's sports because we have daughters, we have young women. And so we want to make sure that we are supportive of that path forward. So in addition to the men's teams, which are doing quite well, Campobasso over in Italy and Cidiaci, that's C for the non-Italians. And we also have Donna Roma, which is the women's team in Rome. We dabbled in Brooklyn with Brooklyn Football Club, the women's team. And we've really made a commitment to not only have investments that are men's sports, but actively seek out women's sports. So we're very selective in it. We're raising some funds. We've got a couple of great investors, core four of us as general partners in that regard, and it's fun. We can be investors, we can be influential, we can be fans, raving fans. We can maybe even be operators if necessary. And the idea is over time, we believe that that's a great bet. We believe that sports media and entertainment is a great bet. We believe education and development at the highest levels is a great bet. So we're going all in on those things, and that's where our investment dollars and a lot of our free time, so to speak, is going, and we're excited about that.
Love it. Yeah, you're always. I didn't know all of that, so it's good that you just catch up, even though we're recording. Let's go back to Palio.
Yes.
I'm going to butcher this, but you always talk about getting the race, run the race, those types of things. And I actually learned this from another podcast that I think you sent me that I listened to about how you named the company. And so talk about that. I would be remiss if I didn't put that on here.
So third, I married an event coordinator. This is the part where I hope she doesn't listen to the show. So I married an event coordinator for a Wall Street analyst, my wife. And then she subsequently retired from coordinating events, which meant I had to plan our honeymoon. All right. So I planned this honeymoon. And the third leg of our honeymoon was that we ended up in Siena, Italy, to go to the Palio, which I was fascinated with this much at the time. But I knew she cared about it and thought it would be pretty cool. And she didn't have a chance to go there when she studied abroad. So there we were. We show up at Siena. She couldn't believe it. She thought it was great. 12 days or 14 days already in Italy. We had the most obscure places, the most tourist places, hiking volcanoes, eating gelato. It was great. Now we're in Siena. She's excited. 4 days in Siena, and you have what's called prova, which are prova sounds like prove, right? Proving races. So the horses run a couple of laps together to see, how the track is, because all it is sand with little walls around it inside of the piazza in the middle of this medieval Italian city, Tuscan city. So the horses have to get familiar, the jockeys have to get familiar, and it's also great because you have 4 days of tourism and people spending money and taking pictures and getting excited, right?
Sure.
So it's an awesome festival. But there's proving races, there's pomp and circumstance, there's dinners at night. Each neighborhood that is represented by an individual horse and a jockey has, special events and whatnot. It's just an awesome build-up until the final day when there's a big parade through the city and all the contrada are out there and everyone's wearing their colors and singing their songs. 700 years of this. And then all the dignitaries walk around the track, and in the middle, there's, a couple 100,000 people or whatever. And it's just packed. Everybody's leaning out of windows, looking down. All this stuff, hours of like a lead up. And then they finally run the race, which is like a minute and 12 seconds. And I said, man, isn't that such an exact microcosm of what you're going through in your career? You have all of this training and buildup and preparation and excitement and celebration and hardship and whatnot, exclusion because you weren't in of the contrada that were chosen. Maybe you weren't chosen that year, right? Because you haven't been winning lately. Whatever the case is. So all of that is real. And then you finally get to the moment, and your moment to shine may only be a minute and 12 seconds. Your moment to shine is 3 laps around the track, and the jockey doesn't have to stay on the darn horse. So it made such perfect sense, and it was so inspiring. It was something tangible and real. And the fact that it's lasted 700 years, I mean,
Right.
700 years ago, like dinosaurs were on this planet, like there weren't even humans. How this race is still going on almost to the exact same way is just remarkable. So I think all of that is where I say the skills you need to know haven't changed very much. The games that people play haven't changed very much. The opportunities that you have are all pretty much similar, just maybe smell a little different, look a little different than they used to. Everybody's wearing a different costume, but for the most part, it's the same stuff. So once you debase, once you bring down all of the nuance that is the corporate world, or getting ahead or being successful, not being a good communicator, being introverted, whatever, when you boil all of it down, you realize it's very easy to build right back up so you can win whatever race you want to win, whatever race you're in. So that's
That's
the
so
uh, that's the
interesting.
long version.
I uh, the other interesting thing, Joe, which I think you just exude, is the race. It happens twice a year, I believe now. I
Yes, July
believe
2nd and August 16th.
I haven't been there, but that's now on my
You
bucket
will.
list.
You will.
But I can only guess that the energy today is the same, right? It's not, we've done this for 700 years and it's just kind of a check the box. I'm guessing that the energy and the vibe and everything is still as passionate as it was, years ago, which is also just something to be said about, life and what you're doing and staying passionate and never taking things for granted. I bet the 4 days is just an experience that lasts with you forever.
You're a golfer, and you
Yeah.
know that the Augusta National has made a fantastic decision to say no cell phones, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
they want people to really experience, as they always have, the gallery, being behind, the professional golfers as they tee off, you know. And it started with the preponderance of people who were like this, you couldn't even see their faces on TV. Everyone's recording, like, dude, you only need one person to record it. It's digital. Let them post it, and everybody will just rip off it, right? So Augusta National, the board there, has made a great decision to do that for golf. If you bring up pictures of the Palio, you see raw generational emotion. People exulting, and not exulting like I'm in the stands at the Stanley Cup. My team just won the seventh game in overtime, and I'm screaming, but I'm also taking a selfie. I'm screaming, but I'm also recording other people celebrating, right? You don't see that. What you see is people who have such identity with the horse that represents their contrada and the 4 days they poured into it. Yeah, they were taking pictures otherwise, of course, to memorialize it, but they are in it. They run on to the track. They're screaming, they're jumping up and down, tears of joy. And then there are the people that are distraught because they lost and they can't believe they thought they were going to win this year. Maybe they lost some money too, probably. But there's so much emotion. There's so much human emotion, and there are so few things left, Chad, in this world that is just a raw emotive situation. That I love stuff like that. And to me, that is one of the greats where they actually bring and they attract so many people to experience all that in their own way together at the same time. Sure, there's plenty of people recording, from the fringe or whatnot, but it's just so raw, so emotional, so real. Um, it's a great experience,
Yeah, I can't wait. We're definitely going to check that one off.
no doubt.
As we come down for landing, how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you? You're always about building a network.
I am, and first and foremost, I say go on LinkedIn. I've been a long time fan, early adopter, probably 07, 06, something like that. LinkedIn is great. It truly is the professional network. Um, Joe Greco, Palio, you can find us. Palio is spelled Palio, and I say that because our website is Palio Inc., Palio Inc., Inc.com. There's some information there. There's a ton of raw stuff and natural stuff and connections on LinkedIn. We do dabble a little bit into other socials, but besides that, you can find me in Larchmont on the weekends with my kids. You can find me kind of coaching from the sideline, recording my kids, sending it to the other players, and even the opposing team's parents. When their kids score, I send them the clips too. You can find me in Manhattan, just taking in the energy of the city. As much as I'd love to get the heck out of here someday, I always, they keep pulling me back. And you can also just find me sometimes sitting on a beach somewhere by myself, having a quiet moment. And please don't come over to me when I'm doing that. No, I'd be happy if you came over and talked to me. Just make it quick, all right?
Joe, that's awesome. As normal, you exceed expectations, my friend.
Chad, when
We'll
you
catch
set the
you.
bar so low, it's easy for me to hop right
Yeah,
over it.
I'm good at that. I'm good at setting the bar low.
As I said
Listen,
earlier, I have nothing but gratitude for you, my man. Appreciate all you've done to bring me into this grand profession of coaching and being a performance coach, being a business consultant and strategist, and every one of the many hats that we get to wear out there and in our own very unique and special way. So I do have much gratitude for you, my brother.
well, my friend, I appreciate that. Keep making awesome stuff happen, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Likewise.
See you, buddy.